What is up, everybody? It's your boy Steve here today, and we have to talk about this Sony fanboy facing a realization that Sony doesn't really have anything for the first 6 months of 2023. So I guess they're hitting the realization that Sony doesn't have any games coming up next year because they were bragging about how Xbox had no games this year because of a lot of games got delayed. But I guess after they beat Ragnarok, they're realizing that hey, for the next 6 to 8 months, there's gonna be no first party games on PlayStation. So there's going to be a major drought for PlayStation owners. So, sure, Square Enix is pretty much carrying PlayStation on its back for next year because they have Forspoken coming out. They have Final Fantasy VII Part 2, Remake Part 2, and they also have Final Fantasy 16 coming out. So, other than that, PlayStation's first party titles is mainly going to be some VR. I think the first half VR titles, which is a super niche genre, like who really cares? And they also have Spider-Man 2, which comes out the second half of 2023. So it's looking pretty rough for PlayStation owners. You're mainly just getting by Square Enix titles, which is time exclusivity or exclusive titles right there. And you're getting by with third-party games as well. So it's going to be a dry 6 months, half a year for PlayStation pretty much. So not looking good. But I guess Sony fanboys are finally realizing that. Let's see what people got to say about this. They do have content. They have Horizon Call of the Mountain for PSVR 2. Once again, a VR game, which is a very niche form of gaming. Like the VR thing costs like $500. It costs as much as it costs more than a console, though, I believe. So it's kind of a crazy investment to just get into the VR ecosystem for PlayStation. So I don't think that's gonna do that well. But we had Call of the Mountain for VR 2. Burning Shores too, which is I think the Horizon Forbidden West DLC, and also Factions 2 will come out there as well. Then the response says Horizon Call of the Mountain, yeah, but it feels hard to count that doesn't really fill the AAA PS5 gap for those who only have a PS5 and not PSVR 2. Yeah. If you're counting VR in the discussion, that's kind of like really like it's such a niche thing, or I don't know. I wouldn't count VR and as to say what games are coming out really. I think for Spoken, Horizon DLC, Final Fantasy 16, and Horizon Call of the Mountain, as well as the mini bangers planned for the first half of 23 will fill the void. Final Fantasy 16, I come out the first half, I don't believe. So, and then again, that's not even first party. That's like Square Enix carrying them. If you don't count VR, then yeah. Outside of timed exclusives, it will look like this. First half 2023, you got PSVR 2 launch and promo push for Horizon VR game, Horizon Forbidden West DLC, and then PC ports. That looks horrendous. That looks absolutely horrendous for PlayStation owners. The second half is Spider-Man 2, The Last of Us Factions 2, and Horizon 1 native PS5 remaster. Oh, a Horizon remaster. That's what we should look forward to. Sony got to stop with these remasters and remakes. This is getting ridiculous. Like, really? And people are actually adding this to like a list. Like, who cares about Horizon Zero Dawn, a remaster? Like, who cares? And that is a big reason why Xbox buys a bunch of studios to keep things like that from happening. Honestly, this year was rock bottom for Xbox players, but after all these teams getting settled in, Xbox users will be eating good with Game Pass. Well, actually, Horizon VR comes in February. I know no one counts VR or Horizon as things that exist, apparently. They're trying to cope with that VR game. Like, nobody, like, seriously. Sure, there's going to be a few minority people who want to play the VR, but the vast majority of people don't care about this VR nonsense. Also, Final Fantasy 16 in June. I know it's on the edge, but it's still technically in the first 6 months. Man, it's going to be a dry 6 months for PlayStation. It is Sony's turn to get no games joke made about them all year. Yeah, it's definitely their turn now. They went on Xbox saying how they had no games for the entire year. How Phil Spencer just mismanaging studios and all this other nonsense. I guess we're gonna hear the same jokes about how Jim Ryan is just mismanaging stuff now because that is gonna be dropping that PlayStation. Well, does Forspoken technically count? I mean, I'm pretty sure Sony doesn't own Square Enix, but if you want to count Square Enix pretty much carrying Sony this year, then sure. It's kind of sad that the Sony has fallen that far where they have to be carried by Square Enix. They have to be carried by a third party company to make games in their system. The so-called market leader. Have you seen the first 6 months of 2023? 2023 releases. This is a good thing. Okay. There is plenty of games coming beginning of 2023. Sony doesn't need to rush out anything for its party if it's not ready. Oh, or they said the same thing about Xbox this year. That's fascinating. They gave so much hate to Xbox and Xbox fans, but apparently Sony is just completely fine without releasing any first party games for a half a year. Okay. Um, some downtime is probably needed, or else it could be Spider-Man 2. That is July title, still not first half, but close. Man, the major game coming out for 2023 for Sony is Spider-Man 2, and that's going to be a while. So, not looking good. That's why the third party is there to fill in the gaps. But Xbox guys can't say the same thing. When Xbox guys say the same thing, it's like, what? Phil Spencer just clearly mismanaging studios. It's just the irony here. The irony. I think The Last of Us multiplayer will be released in the first half. They don't know when this game is coming out, but they want to say it's the first half. Okay. That'll most likely be the second half of 2023. I mean, do y'all just want them to rush crap to fill this time, or take their time and do what the best they can do? This is sounding a lot like the Xbox fans was saying this year, so I don't know. Seems like a lot of these Sony guys are just hypocrites at the end of the day. Like, they would call it Xbox for having no games this year, but when the same talking point can be said to Sony fans, they say the same thing pretty much, that you shouldn't rush out anything and let them take their time and all that nonsense. So, They will announce Bloodborne 2 and release it the first half of 2023 to carry the first 6 months for sure. What is this guy talking about? Let's get. I don't know what he's talking about, but there you go. Apparently, they're releasing Bloodborne 2. We will have 2 live service titles in the first 3 months, according to Sony. Destiny 2 DLC is coming out next month, so a DLC counts as a game now? Oh, that's interesting. What about Final Fantasy 16? Once again, they are being carried by third party, and they wanted to count as first party, which is sad. Yeah, and Microsoft hasn't had a first party since Infinite last year, LOL. Once again, this is talking about Sony, but why does that? What does that have to do with Xbox? We're talking about Sony's calendar year for first party stuff, and you can't help but mention Xbox. Don't act like you are now noticing this. Because they were too happy celebrating the God of Ragnarok game, they just forgot that they got a long drought between the first party titles coming out. So just hilarious. PlayStation has no games. I don't know. In my opinion, if I was a PlayStation fan, I would trade PSVR 2 for some actual first party traditional games at this point. But, I guess they just want to go with the whole PSVR situation. Good, no wasted investments. Xbox in the first half of 2023. Yeah, a lot of games coming out for Xbox. Spider-Man is not the first half. They keep posting Spider-Man, but that's not the first half. I feel like they just haven't announced everything yet. Okay. Keep hope alive, then. Keep hope alive that first 6 months is not going to be super dry on that PlayStation. So, Yeah, I'm gonna conclude it right here. It's just funny that Sony fanboys are now realizing that they're gonna go through a completely dry phase on PlayStation for a while, for half a year for first party content, and pretty much gonna be getting Sony's pretty much gonna be carried by Square Enix for a while, which is kind of ridiculous. This market leader, this great company, has to be carried by Square Enix this whole entire year. So just hilarious. But definitely want to see your thoughts down below about this. Sony going this long without first party content. Leave a like this video, and as always, thanks for watching, and peace.